On paper, Maharaja Foods is telling a story of incredible growth. But if you look behind the headlines, a much more complicated narrative starts to emerge. We're going to go behind the numbers to find the true profit and loss picture.
And boom, here it is, right up front. The company reported a profit of over 18 million rupees. Looks great, right? But the actual cash that came from its operations, that was negative 21 million. So where on earth did nearly 40 million rupees of value just vanish? That's the question we're here to answer.
All right, as always, just a quick reminder, this is a forensic breakdown for educational purposes. It's not a buy or a sell signal.
Okay, let's start with that reported profit. The company is out there celebrating this huge jump in sales, but the quality of that growth, well, that's where the illusion really starts to crack. Here's the core of the problem, and you can see it clear as day in this chart. Yeah, revenue shot up by an impressive 51%. Fantastic, but look at the bar next to it. The cost to actually make those sales grew even faster at 63%. When your costs are outrunning your sales, you're not really growing. You're just bloating your top line. And this slide right here shows the direct result of that. The company's gross margin, that's the profit it makes on each sale before any overheads, it just collapsed. It went from almost 20% all the way down to 13.6%. That is a catastrophic drop in profitability. For every 100 rupees of product they sold, they're now keeping over 6 rupees less than they did before. That adds up fast. And here is our first big but. To be fair, the company did manage its other costs, like admin and distribution, pretty well. They grew slower than revenue. That's what we call positive operating leverage, and it's a good thing. But it was like using a teacup to bail out a sinking ship compared to the massive hit they took on their gross margin. It just wasn't enough to make a real difference. So if the profit and loss statement is looking shaky, where did the actual physical cash go? For that answer, we have to flip over to the balance sheet. This is where we find all the cash traps. Okay, let's just follow the money. They start with that supposed 18 million rupee profit, but then they spent a massive 47 million on inventory, stuff that's now just sitting in a warehouse, not earning anything. Then they made a huge strategic move. They paid off over 100 million rupees to their suppliers early. So that paper profit, it was completely wiped out, leaving them with a 21 million rupee cash deficit from their actual business. So what's the real-world consequence of this cash drain? A current ratio of just 1.05. That means for every single rupee of short-term debt they have, they only have 1 rupee and 5 cents of short-term assets to cover it. We're talking razor-thin liquidity here. This leaves them with absolutely zero room for error. This kind of cash crunch forces a company's hand. They had to get money from somewhere, and their solution? Well, it was a pretty high-stakes gamble. Just look at the massive shift here. Before, the business was basically being funded by its suppliers, which is essentially a free loan. Now, to pay those suppliers off, they've taken on 40 million rupees in new interest-bearing bank loans. They've literally swapped free financing for expensive financing. This brings us to a really critical metric, the cash conversion ratio. It measures how good a company is at turning its profits into actual cash in the bank. A healthy company is well above 1. Maharaja's is negative 1.17. This number proves it. They are actively burning cash to generate paper profits. But here's a counterpoint. Can they handle this new debt? For now, the answer is yes. Their operating profit covers their new interest payments about 3 times over. The critical thing to watch, though, is that their margin for safety has shrunk a lot. Any further dip in profitability, and this could become a serious problem very fast. So, what does this all mean for the future of the company? Well, it puts any potential investor at a crossroads, really. You're facing 2 very, very different potential outcomes. The bull case, the optimistic view, is that this is all just a temporary problem. The theory goes that the inventory will eventually sell, those margins will bounce back, and hey, maybe paying suppliers early unlocks better discounts down the road. But the bear case, the pessimistic view, is that this margin collapse is the new normal. That this so-called growth is actually destroying value, and the new debt has just made the entire company much more fragile. So the ultimate question really is this: is Maharaja Foods a powerful growth engine just hitting a temporary speed bump, or is it a classic value trap, where the harder it works, the more value it actually burns? The real answer is going to be in next quarter's gross margin. If you value signal over noise, subscribe and join the circuit.